What are some of the Social Security facts that you don't know? Plus, some of the financial decisions today that you can make today that will pay off very nicely in the future, along with the fact that we're going to give you some questions on today's program about some of the questions that you should be posing prior to retiring. So if you're getting close to retirement, you certainly want to listen to that segment of the program. Welcome, of course, to Dollars and Cents. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program. Now, pretty much all of Central Florida. We welcome our newest station to our lineup, the folks over on the Space Coast, 92.7 WMMB, to join with us here on WFLA News Radio Orlando, along with 96.9 The Game. So now the reach of the program is much greater than it ever used to be, and so we're happy to welcome new listening audiences, along with the audiences that listen to us on the internet, courtesy of their favorite podcast channel of choice, or maybe you're checking us out on our YouTube channel at Nelson Financial Planning. My name, of course, is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where our team stands ready this week to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective retirement plan. We got big news, big happenings in the Garris household this coming week. My middle son, Ethan, graduates from high school. Very, very excited from that. He'll be a Boone High School graduate at the end of the week. I guess technically after Thursday, because Thursday is graduation day. So we're very excited about that. We've got family coming into town. Should be a fun weekend celebrating a changing or a change of chapter, if you will, in a young man's life. So we're super excited about that. Also super excited that we actually have a graduation ceremony. So even that is really cool in today's world as we're starting to emerge from all of this pandemic caution, although obviously you still want to be cautious out there because this thing is still going on. But it's great to see that we've got some opportunities in a structured manner to be able to celebrate events like this, because my heart goes out to those families who missed all of that last season. Speaking of exciting, we can't not talk about this, right? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, that is just the most exciting thing out there going. My goodness, here are the numbers. Here are the statistics, right? The price of Bitcoin, which is most arguably the most established of the private digital currencies. Remember, at last count, there was over 4,700 different cryptocurrencies. So the price of Bitcoin gone up about 290% if you're keeping score just over the past 6 months. That is paltry in comparison to some of the other alternatives that are out there. Ether, which is sort of the second largest cryptocurrency by market value over that same 6-month period of time, rose 710%. And then meanwhile, we've got the cryptocurrency that actually started out as a joke, the Dogecoin, Dogcoin, I don't even really know how you're supposed to say that, but that is up 23,000% over a 6-month period of time. Now, let's put these numbers into a little bit of perspective, and hopefully they leave you scratching your head just a tad. So over the course of the past 6 months, the combined value of all cryptocurrencies has risen from 427 billion to 2.4 trillion. That's a 6x increase in a 6-month period of time. In comparison, it is certainly dwarfed by the 20 trillion in equity that Americans have in their home. It's also dwarfed by the 50 trillion value of the US stock market, but it is rapidly approaching the 2.6 trillion that investors around the world have in gold. So cryptocurrency almost, in terms of market value, approaching gold, which been around for a couple of thousand years. Cryptocurrency is pretty much only around for the past several years. So similar to gold, though, cryptocurrencies have a hard time sort of figuring out what exactly the valuation should carry. They don't provide a stream of income like the earnings of a company. They don't generate out a product. So in a lot of ways, they are sort of difficult, much like gold, to sort of figure out exactly what it's worth. And then, of course, to further that analysis, cryptocurrencies aren't fundamentally backed by anything. That's sort of a desirable feature in the eyes of most people. But the reality is, if there's nothing backing it, then it is just simply what people say. Because the reality is that there are some businesses that are starting to collect or allow folks to pay in cryptocurrency, but it's very more useful for, I guess, illegal purposes. I mean, let's face it, this is a currency of criminals because of the non-traceable nature of it. That's its primary use, where you've got folks in North Korea, Russia, and whereabouts that are ultimately using this as their means of exchange. But there's another notion that has sort of popped up, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes on the program to just chat about that. There's this notion that somehow, like gold, and so here's the comparison. The gold, like gold, they're saying that, oh, well, this cryptocurrency, this is going to be a hedge against inflation. The problem with that is that that's a completely 100% unfounded statement. And you want to know why? Cryptocurrency's only been around for a few years. We haven't had any inflation for the past few years. So this notion that somehow you've got this asset, you've got this new asset that is going to perform in such a way as to be an inflation hedge when its entire time of existence on this planet, there's been no inflation. So how do you know that? What's the justification for that? Because you can't point to, remember this period of time? Yes, that held up against inflation, and that was really great, and it was a great inflation hedge. There's no data on that. There's zero data on that argument. At least with gold, you got 2,000 years of history. You can kind of, plot it a little bit. But with cryptocurrency, there's nothing. So if you're basing your strategy, if you will, on what something might happen in a set of circumstances where it's never actually experienced, I would suggest that that's probably not a good idea. This is the very definition of pure speculation. Oh, it's an inflation hedge. It hasn't ever been around during an inflationary period, so how do you know it's an inflationary hedge? It's very simple. That is the definition of pure speculation. And folks, let me just remind y'all, speculation is not investing. If you're relying on the next guy who purchases the item from you to value your thing more than you, right? Because that's how it works. Somebody else has got to value it more than you, and then that way they give you more money for it. The reality is, be prepared to run out of next guys. And if you need a little refresher, we refer you to a Danish children's book. It's one of the ones that I used to read to my kids when they were not old enough to graduate from high school, when they were young. But anyway, the time passes very quickly. It's a book by Hans Christian Andersen. Maybe you've heard of him. Been around for a while. It's called The Emperor Has No Clothes. We encourage you to read that and think about that in light of cryptocurrency. With that, we're going to take a break, and we will continue the conversation on the other half of these messages about some of the financial decisions that you can make today that will really pay off for the future. All that coming up here on News Radio, WFLA Orlando, 96.9 The Game, and of course, our listening audience over on 92.7 WMMB. So what are some of the financial decisions that you can make today that will pay off handsomely in the future? We're going to give you 5 different things to consider and hopefully apply to your life in this segment of the program. So welcome back to Dollars and Cents, where we help people make sense out of all of life's decisions involving their dollars. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program, coming to you now on a broad array of networks here in Central Florida. We welcome our listeners over on 92.7 WMMB for our first show on that network. And then, of course, we certainly welcome back our listeners on our prior networks, News Radio WFLA Orlando, along with 96.9 The Game. So I think we got the whole region covered with the addition of the folks over at WMMB. So we're excited to have them in as part of our lineup as well. The program is hosted by me, and of course, Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where our team of certified financial fiduciaries stands ready this week to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So what are some of those things that you want to be thinking about now, the decisions that you need to be making now to help really make a difference for your future? And the first one sort of starts off with something that I think during the course of the pandemic really sort of underscored the importance of having this, and that is an emergency savings account. Now, an emergency savings account is just as it sounds. It's a savings account that you use in emergencies. And maybe people don't really appreciate the words there. The reality is that it is intended to just be some cash that is sitting off to the sidelines. Maybe it's a money market account, maybe it's a savings account, whatever the case may be. And maybe not making a whole lot of money right now with where interest rates are, but at the end of the day, it is secure and it is easily accessible. The very definition of having a savings account is, and particularly an emergency savings account, is that it is one that you can use very easily, very quickly. That's usually how emergencies spring out. And it's in a savings account, so it's easily accessible, easily usable. If anything showed us during the course of the pandemic the importance of having that. And you may say, well, how do I do that? How do I get there? What our suggestion is on that is there's no way you're going to sort of get there overnight. But if you start out with the notion of just putting aside $50 per week in an emergency savings account, by the end of the year, you'll have about $2,400. That, for most folks, would allow them to sort of get through a month or two of difficulty if that struck on a financial basis. So we're not looking to wake up tomorrow and have $5,000 in the account, because that's going to be hard to do. The reality is you've got to get there over time. One of the simplest ways to do that is just save $50 per week and do that for a year. By the time that you're done, you'll have about $2,400, $2,500 in your savings account, and that certainly would be one of the best things that you can do for yourself to avoid the kinds of emergencies that the reality is that most people, when they're struck with those emergencies, they wind up using their credit cards, and then that means that now they're stuck with debt at really, really high interest rates, which is going to be very difficult to get rid of. So that's number one, is make sure you figure out a plan to make sure you've got an emergency savings account. Number two, and from an investing perspective, using mutual funds, right, which are baskets of stocks, presents a great way to sort of get started into the investing world, right? If you're doing individual stocks, that means you've got to kind of research and track down exactly what the individual company is all about before you buy it. But if you're using a fund, it's basically a broad-based basket of stocks. So that could be a fund that tracks the S&P 500, or that could be an ETF, whatever the case may be. Those types of investments allow you as an investor to put in a small amount of money, but rather have a fully diversified portfolio of hundreds of companies, versus if you were just trying to do it on an individual stock basis. Well, then, with $100 a month or something like that, you're probably only going to get a handful of shares of just one company. The other thing about mutual funds, ETFs, is they really do have a lot of ease of access in terms of being able to set up things like regular investments, where you can take advantage of the concept of dollar cost averaging, which simply means if you're putting money in on a regular basis, then ultimately you wind up sort of smoothing out the volatility of the market. So we encourage folks to do that, and particularly when you set up yourself to invest on a regular basis, you really do sort of smooth out the volatility in the market, because you're taking advantage of that dollar cost averaging concept. Number three is the old-fashioned concept of paying yourself first. I think far too many people think of, okay, I'm going to save after I pay my bills. And the problem with that is that the bills can sort of chew up most of the money, and then you wind up spending money unnecessarily. And then that gets you into, okay, well, now I'm going to do a budget because I'm going to try and track my expenses better. And then that way I can save more. The problem is everybody talks about doing a budget, but for the most part, people don't do it because that's just human nature. So if you eliminate that difficulty, right, of having a budget and tracking expenses and things like that, and you just simply pay yourself first, take it right off the front end. As soon as the paycheck comes in, you immediately slide 5% or 10% out and pay yourself first. That will allow you to make sure that you are in fact saving for the future rather than use it as an afterthought. Far too many people kind of think of saving and investing as an afterthought, right? After I get my money in and after I pay all my bills and do whatever else I need to do, then the amount left over, okay, that's the amount that I'm going to save. The problem is that more often than not, there's not really anything left over. So if you do it first and take it off right at the top, then you will be establishing the ability to save money on a regular basis and doing it in a much more consistent fashion. Because again, far too many people say, yes, I need a budget and that will allow me to save money. More often than not, people don't really get around to it, or they lose track, or they lose a receipt, and don't really pay attention to sort of the money that's going out. Paying yourself first eliminates all of that and is a great way to make sure that that happens. Next up is to think of debt like the plague, or I guess in today's world you would say think of debt like COVID, right? Because when you wind up accruing up debt, there's always an interest rate cost to it. And particularly if you're using credit cards, that interest rate can be very, very high. Debt is a drag on your overall financial picture, right? Remember the formula for what net worth is. It's assets minus liabilities. Liabilities are debt. So the more debt you have, the more it takes a hit against your assets and reduces down your net worth. So make sure that you're not assuming a whole lot of debt along the way and keeping that under control. The goal is to get to retirement and not owe anybody anything. And that means the mortgage as well. So you really want to be trying to time the payoff of your mortgage to the point where you're getting at that retirement age. Because if you don't have the mortgage, then guess what? You don't have that big outflow that is going out, because the reality is that in terms of outflow in retirement, the old healthcare cost kicks in there pretty good. So you certainly don't want to have a mortgage payment that's also going to be eating up a set amount of your income each and every month in retirement. And then lastly, focus on trying to increase your income. And that's for folks that are still a few years away from retirement. Oftentimes people will try and, I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do that. The reality is that if you've got a skill set of which you are getting paid for, then you should be trying to magnify your expertise or your abilities with that skill set. Maybe that's taking some extra training classes. Maybe that's taking an extra, finding an extra credential, depending upon what your profession is. The reality is that goal to sort of get promoted, to climb up the ladder, if you will, by putting in a little extra work, ultimately gets you with more income. So focus on yourself a little bit in terms of trying to improve your income, not to look for something that you can do on the side. I think far too many people kind of look for the side hustle, side gig, and that's fine. But the reality is that you probably have a core set of talents and expertise that if you focused on that and became more of an expert in that and put in more hours on that, you probably would find that you're able to climb the ladder a little bit and get paid a little bit more for what it is that you do. So certainly some things to be thinking about, some decisions, some financial decisions that you need to make now that ultimately generate a better future for you down the road. We'll take a break. When we get back, we'll continue the conversation. We're going to talk about some of the facts about Social Security that most people don't know. Coming up next on the program. what are some of the facts about Social Security that you may not know? There was a recent survey done of 1,000 respondents, and some of the questions that were asked and some of the answers that people gave kind of leave you scratching your head that a lot of people don't really know some of the fundamentals about Social Security. And what's important to know about Social Security is that the sad reality of where people's finances are is pretty tough. I mean, you're gonna, for most Americans, they're gonna be relying on Social Security, particularly when you consider that 64% of Americans have less than $10,000 in retirement savings. And in fact, 46% claim to have nothing in retirement savings. So certainly want to get your facts straight on Social Security, because for a lot of folks, it's going to be the largest piece of income that you have in retirement. So welcome back to the program here on Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program, coming to you now on 92.7 WMMB, along with News Radio Orlando, WFLA, and 96.9 The Game. We also happen to be one of the top 25 financial planning podcasts on the World Wide Web. So make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast channel of choice. Any problems finding our particular channel on your podcast format, just go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. Upper right hand corner, click on the icon that looks most familiar to you, and you will get immediately directed over to our channel. Along with, you'll see that we also have a YouTube channel where here on Sunday mornings we video the program as well, so you can kind of see what the format looks like. It's kind of a format that still looks like a little pandemic-y because we're doing it from home and the producer is back over in the studio. My name, of course, is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where our team of certified financial fiduciary stands ready this week to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So some of the dramatic numbers that came out as a result of this survey: Social Security is, for most people, a major part of their income that they will be getting in retirement. And so there was a recent survey that asked a variety of questions, and some of the questions, and sadly the answers, were kind of way off. So we thought we would spend some time sort of talking through some of these basic Social Security facts that you need to know. So first one, just 30% of respondents gave the correct answer as to what age Social Security can start. The correct answer is age 62, but put a little asterisk beside that for two reasons. Number one, 62 is not your full retirement age. Your full retirement age, for most people, rapidly approaching age 67. They've moved that needle so that your full retirement age is 67. If you're approaching that age right now, you may find that it's 66 and 4 months or 66 and 6 months. The reality is that for most people now, it is age 67. So two things to know referencing to your full retirement age is that, number one, if you are working, and that means working and going to a job and getting a paycheck, W-2, that kind of thing, then you are limited to how much you can work and collect Social Security. So if you're earning more than $19,000, your Social Security, you're going to have to pay some of that back because you're over the earnings limit. Now, that earnings limit applies up until the time until you reach your full retirement age. Similarly, if you take it early, it is subject to a reduction. So if your full retirement is age 67 and you decide to take it at 62, your benefit, and it's the benefit that if you've ever looked at your Social Security statement, the one that appears on the front page in bold print, that number, if you're taking it at 62 and your full retirement age is 67, it's going to be 2/3 of that number that appears on the sheet, because it is subject to a reduction if you take it early. So certainly something to know about what age you can take it at, but understand that there's also some implications on that when you do that. Folks over the age of 65 were a little bit more accurate on predicting the average monthly benefit that you would get from Social Security. The reality is that younger folks, of course, were least accurate because further away and didn't really sort of appreciate how much money they're going to put into that program over the course of the next 40 or 50 years of working. The correct answer, the average Social Security benefit per month comes up to $1,514. So $1,514, that's not a lot of money. So another thing to understand about these Social Security facts is that you've got to listen to the earlier parts of the program about making decisions now to put you in better shape for your future. Because if you're banking on the $1,514 you're going to get from Social Security as somehow covering your retirement, that's going to be a little tight, if you will, on the expenses. So Social Security rules often are pretty complex. Some of the rules out there that the survey asked about were whether both people could collect at the same time. The answer to that is yes. You can actually collect on your spouse's record as well, and it does not, even a divorced spouse, even if were married to them for 10 years, it doesn't impact their Social Security. Okay, so even though you may be collecting on their record, it doesn't impact the amount of Social Security that they're going to get. So understand you can collect off your spouses or, in fact, your ex-spouse as well. Yes, Social Security does pay disability benefits as well. So that's another form of Social Security benefit. There's a retirement benefit, but there's also a disability benefit as well. Those are both separate and distinct from each other, but they're all part of the Social Security umbrella. Another statistic on it, 43% didn't know that you could receive Social Security in conjunction with your spouse. The answer, of course, there is yes. The other piece that I think people forget is just how many years folks or Social Security is looking at when it's calculating your benefit. When the Social Security benefit is calculated, it's based upon the average of 35 years of work, not like the highest 5 or the best 10 or whatever the other parameters might be. No, Social Security looks at your full body of work, your full lifetime of occupation, and ultimately looks at it on a 35-year average. So understand it's not just a handful of years, it's really taking a look at the whole picture. The other part that we always like to mention on when we're talking about Social Security is a lot of conversation about Social Security running out of money. What's interesting about that is when you hear that expression, it doesn't mean that it is going to zero. It just means that by the year 2037, there's not going to be enough money that's going to be available to cover the benefits as they are currently stipulated, and in fact, could potentially lead to a 25% reduction in those benefits. Now, obviously, a lot can change between now and 2037, right? And some of it may be a higher full retirement age, which certainly has happened in the past. Higher taxes as well to generate out more income for the program itself. But just know that when you hear that Social Security is running out of money, that doesn't mean the same thing as you or I running out of money. If we run out of money, we got nothing left. When Social Security runs out of money, or at least as that term is kicked around in the media, the reality is that it just means that they're not going to be able to pay out at the same level that they were going to be able to pay out. Because, of course, with Social Security, right, every paycheck that everybody in America is paid winds up having a portion of that go directly to Social Security, which then turns around and pays the benefits. So it's not going to run to zero because you still have all these people working and paying in each and every day here in America. So what are some of the ways in which you can get more informed? We're going to give you 2 ideas here. First and foremost, you certainly want to talk to an expert. Our team of folks at Nelson Financial Planning consists of a variety of experts. We've got a CPA, an IRS enrolled agent. We also have a National Social Security advisor. That's Rob there at the office. And so ultimately, those folks have the expertise to really try and help develop a particular Social Security income plan for you. So number 1, always good to talk to an expert. And number 2, always good to get good information. And the best place to get information about what your Social Security may be is Social Security itself. So one of the things that you want to do is try and set up an online account. Very hard to get anybody on the phone these days. So set up an online account, and then that way you can see exactly what your numbers are going to be. Just simply go to www.ssa.gov. Make sure the GOV is on there at the end. Otherwise, you may wind up with a site that you don't want to go to. And ultimately, that site, once you set yourself up, allows you to view your Social Security statement and get an estimate of future benefits as well. So some good information there in terms of how you can better stay informed about all of these Social Security facts. You don't want to be one of these folks that doesn't even know what the starting age of Social Security is or anything like that. So some good information there on Social Security. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to continue on with some of the questions of things to be thinking about today as you approach retirement. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris, News Radio, WFLA Orlando 96.9 The Game and 92.7 WMMB. What are some of the things to be thinking about as you approach retirement, right? You're getting close. Have you thought of everything? We're going to give you some specific questions to ask yourself before you retire. And if you can get these questions all kind of organized, then you should be able to retire well. So welcome back to the program. This, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We are Central Florida's longest running radio program, now on a multitude of networks throughout Central Florida. We welcome our listening audience over on 92.7 WMMB to the program, along with our longtime audience at News Radio Orlando and, of course, 96.9 The Game. Also, our listeners out there on the internet as well. We're one of the top 25 financial planning podcasts on the World Wide Web. So make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast channel of choice. Simply look us up under Nelson Financial Planning. My name, Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where our team of certified financial fiduciaries stands ready this week to help answer some of these questions that we're going to pose on this segment of the program. So what are those questions about how the things that you should be asking yourself before retirement? I guess first and foremost, it sort of starts with, what's the plan, right? I mean, what's the grand plan? Is it traveling? Is it golf? Is it volunteering? Is it working part-time? Is it moving? What does that look like? What is it, and what does that look like? And it's important to kind of think about that, because like anything in life, it's important to have some kind of a routine, some kind of a schedule where you know, okay, here's what we're going to do today, and here's what I need to do, and these are the things that are going to be important to me. One of the other caveats that we always like to kind of put into this, and when we talk about, what's the grand plan, is make sure you talk to your partner about it. It's amazing how often times partners don't really have the same thought as to what it looks like. So make sure you're also having that conversation to really talk about what exactly that plan looks like. If one spouse only wants to, kind of stay at home and the other one wants to travel, then you've got to kind of figure out what that picture is going to look like. So make sure you've got a grand plan, if you will, and make sure you've talked it out with everybody that is impacted by said grand plan. Number two, and I guess this is obviously self-evident, right? If you're thinking about retiring, you have to make sure that, in fact, you have the cash. So think about the grand plan and research what the cost of it is going to be, right? If you're planning on traveling all the time, well, there's an expense to that you're probably not incurring now because you're working all the time. So that's a chief among the notion of making sure that you have enough cash to retire, is understand what are the expenses going to be in retirement and try and get a handle on what they're going to be. There's a few caveats to sort of remember when you're thinking about cash and income needs in retirement, and that is that first and foremost, in the first few years of retirement, you're going to spend more money, and everybody thinks that you spend more money gradually over time, and that some of that part of that is true. But in the first few years of retirement, you're going to spend more money because you're younger and going to be more active than you are when you are older. So consequently, there's a bit of an increase in the amount of income needs and expenses that occur in the first few years of retirement. And then number two is this notion of healthcare. Healthcare cost is going to be much higher than what you think. Because right now, you don't really see it. Because if you work for an employer, chances are there's a plan. Maybe you're paying towards some of it, but because it's a group plan, then there's not this huge cost versus an individual policy. Understand that healthcare is going to be a large cost. The goal then, when you look at that cash, is make sure that the amount of money that you have saved for retirement is enough to really replace 100% of your current income. I think people often talk about, oh, you just need to replace 80% of income. We don't think that that's an accurate estimation. The reality is you will certainly want to be replacing 100% of your income, particularly when you think about the fact that you're going to be spending more money in the first few years, and you're certainly going to be spending more money on healthcare than you may realize. Next up is the notion of, should I move, right? I mean, should I leave the area that I'm currently in? Should I move? Maybe that's because I want to be close to family members. Maybe I'm looking at the cost of housing, being able to access healthcare facilities, close to entertainment, airports, things like that. Hey, maybe it's the weather, right? I mean, a lot of folks coming down in Florida because of the beautiful weather. And of course, don't forget the other thing, taxes. State income taxes in Florida are 0. And so that obviously makes it attractive. So those are the things to be thinking about the notion of should I move is, well, what's in those factors that is important to me before I just kind of just up and sell the house and move out of town. Make sure you've thought about those different types of factors that can influence where it is that that you live. Similarly, should you sell the home? And this is an interesting one, because for the most part, the bulk of people's wealth is actually tied up in their house. It represents the largest potential source of liquidity, and it's tax-free. Now, there's some limitations on that, but generally, if you're selling your primary residence and the gain is less than $500,000 for a couple, then all of that comes to you with 0 taxes. And the reality also is that you probably don't need all that space either. So understand that the house money becomes tax-free. So that ultimately introduces a lot of liquidity into the mix that is much more tax efficient as you use it. So too often, we see folks stay too long in the same house, and then, they accumulate too much stuff, and then that gets overwhelming. How do you deal with all that stuff? And just people kind of continue to ignore it, or, get overwhelmed with maintenance issues. As houses age, the stuff breaks down and ultimately creates its own set of issues. And then lastly, have I made a legacy plan? And this for us is more than just a legacy plan, is more than an estate plan, in that it looks at sort of what's in place now and sort of what's going to happen after. And I think most estate plans sort of look at, okay, well, we got to get all this stuff in place now. A legacy plan would say, okay, well, that's great, and you certainly need to do that, but then what does this look like after the fact? So in terms of estate documents, it's the usual will, power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living will. Trust, not as useful as you might think, particularly when you think about what's going to happen after. What are the tax implications, and how do you avoid probate? Making sure that you wind up naming beneficiaries on all accounts. So those are some of the things to be thinking about. We're going to wrap it on up and get on out of here. Thanks very much for listening to the program. We welcome all of our new listeners over on 92.7 WMMB here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.